Ever find yourself, I don't know, kind of blown away by how AI seems to be everywhere these days?
Yeah, it's really remarkable. Like it's helping you pick out a movie 1 minute and then the next it's like assisting doctors with complex surgeries.
Right. But it's like, how did we even get here?
Yeah.
We're diving deep into the work of one of the people who really laid the foundation for this whole AI revolution we're experiencing, Bruce G. Buchanan.
Ah, Bruce Buchanan. Now, there's a name you might not hear every day, like some of those big tech giants, but his work, it's foundational to AI as we know it.
Totally. That's why we're diving into this article. Bruce G. Buchanan, pioneer in expert systems and AI research. We're talking the 1960s and 70s, the really early days of AI. It was a whole different world back then.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the computing power alone, it was just a sliver of what we have today. And AI as a field, it was still trying to like figure out its own identity, you know?
Exactly. And that's what makes Buchanan so interesting. He wasn't your typical computer science guy. The article mentions he had degrees in both math and philosophy, which is pretty unique.
That's such an important point. See, back then, most AI researchers, they were all about general AI. That was the dream. Machines that could do it all.
So, like, the ultimate brainiac computer, like
Yeah.
outsmarting humans at everything.
Exactly. But Buchanan, he had a different vision. He believed that instead of chasing after this, like, super intelligence, AI could make a real difference by specializing.
So instead of a jack of all trades, it's more like, what, a master of one?
Precisely. He wasn't interested in building a machine that could do everything just okay. Buchanan wanted AI systems that could actually outperform humans, but in specific tasks. And this approach, it was a game changer.
Okay, I'm hooked. So how did he actually make this vision a reality? The article mentions something called Dendril, which already sounds super high-tech.
Dendril, oh, that was huge. It was one of the very first expert systems ever.
Yeah.
And get this, Buchanan was a key player on the team that built it, along with Edward Feigenbaum and a Nobel laureate, no less, Joshua Lederberg at Stanford.
A Nobel Prize winner.
Oh.
Okay, now I know they're serious. So what did this Dendril actually do?
Okay, so imagine you're a chemist, right? You're in the lab, and you've got all this data from a technique called mass spectrometry, which gives you clues about the structure of a molecule. But deciphering it, it's like a super complex jigsaw puzzle, even for experienced chemists.
So, like, solving a puzzle, but at the molecular level.
Precisely. And that's where Dendril came in. It was like a super-powered puzzle solver, specifically for chemists. You feed it the raw data from the mass spectrometer, and boom, using its knowledge of chemistry, it can actually determine the structure of that molecule.
Hold on, so Dendril was like thinking like a chemist.
You got it. Buchanan and the team, they essentially programmed Dendril with the same logic and rules that chemists use to analyze those spectrometry results. They weren't just coding formulas, they were teaching it to reason like an expert.
Wow. And the article mentions that Dendril could even outperform human chemists in some cases. How's that even possible?
Well, there's this famous example where Dendril figured out the structure of this really complex, unknown molecule. It took Dendril, get this, 15 minutes. A team of chemists had been working on it for months.
So 15 minutes versus months. Okay, I get it. That's a game changer. But Dendril was for chemists, right?
Sure.
So how did it impact the whole field of AI? Was this a one-hit wonder, or did it spark something bigger?
Dendril, oh, it was far more than a one-off. It was a watershed moment. It showed everyone that AI could be incredibly powerful, not just for general intelligence, but when it was laser-focused on a specific field, it could even be better than humans at certain tasks.
So it's like Dendril was the spark that ignited the whole field of expert systems.
Exactly. And here's where Buchanan's impact, it goes way beyond just, building a cool piece of tech. He fundamentally changed how people thought about what AI could be.
So Dendril was a tough act to follow, right? But Buchanan, he wasn't done. The article goes on to talk about another expert system he worked on, this one called MYCIN. Does that name sound familiar?
MYCIN, oh yeah. MYCIN is like legendary in AI. So we had Dendril tackling chemistry. But MYCIN, this one dove into the world of medicine, diagnosing infectious diseases, to be exact.
Okay, so now we're talking about something that directly affects people's health. Diagnosing diseases that's serious stuff.
Absolutely. And this is where you see another layer of Buchanan's, genius. He knew that the kind of straightforward logic that was a home run in chemistry, it wouldn't always work in medicine, right? Doctors, they often have to make judgment calls, even with incomplete information.
You can't always just, like, run a test and get a clear-cut answer.
Exactly. So Buchanan and his team, they had this challenge: how to teach MYCIN to deal with uncertainty. which back then was a huge deal in AI, and their solution, certainty factors.
Certainty factors. Okay, now that sounds interesting. How do those work?
Just picture this. A doctor tells you, I'm 80% certain you've got this infection. They aren't totally sure, but based on what they know, it's the most likely thing. Certainty factors. They let MYCIN do that kind of thinking, express that nuance.
So instead of just like a yes or no, MYCIN could give you a probability.
Exactly. It would look at a patient's symptoms, their history, even lab results, and then it'd assign these certainty factors to different diagnoses. That way, doctors wouldn't just see what MYCIN recommended, but also how confident it was in that recommendation.
That makes a lot of sense. Like MYCIN was showing its work.
Right. And that transparency, that was huge for Buchanan. It was part of his whole philosophy. He understood that if you want AI to really work in a field like medicine, it's got to earn people's trust. You can't just expect people to blindly trust a machine.
Yeah, it's one thing to trust a computer with, like math problems, but your health, that's different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And MYCIN, it really broke new ground there. It wasn't just this black box spitting out answers. It could actually explain its reasoning. So if MYCIN said, give this antibiotic, it could tell you why, based on all the data it looked at.
So it's like MYCIN was saying, look, I might not be 100% sure, but here's why you should trust me on this.
Exactly. And being able to explain itself, that was huge for doctors. They could actually see the logic and then make their own informed decisions.
Buchanan was way ahead of his time. I mean, even now, this whole idea of AI transparency, it's a massive debate.
Oh, absolutely. Buchanan knew early on that as AI gets more powerful, it's not enough for it to just be smart.
Yeah.
It's got to be understandable, too, especially when it's making decisions that affect people's lives.
It's almost like he saw that building AI, it wasn't just about the tech, it was about the relationship between humans and machines.
You nailed it. Buchanan's vision for AI, it always had this idea of like collaboration, humans and computers working together. AI wasn't about replacing us. It was about giving us new tools, making us more capable.
That idea of like teamwork, humans and computers, that's huge these days. But Buchanan was onto that back in the 70s. It's wild.
He really did see the bigger picture. He knew even then that AI wasn't about like replacing humans. It was about making us better, giving us these like power tools for our brains almost.
And that's where his background, the math and the philosophy, it all comes together, right? It wasn't just about the code.
Absolutely. Buchanan was already thinking about the ethics of it all, way back then,
Right.
long before it became like the big debate it is now. He wanted AI to be a good thing, used for good, which meant building it with, well, a conscience.
So not just data and algorithms, but actual values built into these systems.
Right. He knew how to be so careful about bias, you know? The biases we have, they can get baked into the AI without us even realizing it, and that's a problem.
So it's like, if we aren't careful, we end up creating AI that's got like the worst parts of us reflected back.
Exactly. That's why he was all about transparency. People have a right to know how these AI decisions are being made, especially when it affects their lives.
It's about accountability too. Like, if AI messes up, we need to be able to trace it back, figure out why.
100%. Transparency and accountability, two sides of the same coin. Buchanan, he wanted AI that was smart, sure, but also explainable. Humans got to stay in control, working with these powerful tools, not being controlled by them.
So we've talked about dendral, MYCIN, all this groundbreaking work.
Yeah.
But Buchanan, he wasn't just building AI, he was shaping the whole field, right? The article mentions Stanford, University of Pittsburgh.
Oh, he was an amazing teacher. At Stanford, he helped create one of the very first AI labs, like, in the world. And then at Pittsburgh, he just kept going, influencing all these students who are now leaders in AI. His impact, it's massive.
So his legacy, it's not just the systems he built, but all the people he inspired.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just universities. He was a big deal in organizations like the Association for the Advancement of Artificial Intelligence, pushing for ethical AI, helping set the guidelines, a true pioneer.
Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground here. Buchanan's unique path, those incredible expert systems, his focus on AI ethics, his role as a teacher, a leader. But for someone listening right now, someone who probably uses AI every day without even thinking about it, how does Buchanan's work from all those years ago connect to the AI we have now?
It's a great question. And the answer. It's all connected. Those AI tools we use, the virtual assistants, the medical apps, even those recommendations popping up on your phone, they all use ideas that Buchanan pioneered. How to represent knowledge so computers get it, how to make them think logically, how to deal with a world that isn't always clear-cut.
So even though the tech's come a long way, we're still building on that foundation he built. decades ago.
100%. He gave us the building blocks, and now we're using them to build, well, skyscrapers.
And that's the thing about Buchanan's work. It reminds us that AI is not just about being good at code. It's about understanding that these systems, they have a real impact on our lives. We got to develop them responsibly.
We can't forget the human side of it all.
Perfectly said. And that's something Bruce D. Buchanan understood better than most.
And that's our deep dive on Bruce D. Buchanan. From those early labs to the AI that's everywhere today, it's a story about human brilliance, about looking ahead and seeing a future where intelligence and, doing the right thing, they go hand in hand. Until next time, keep diving.